Hi everybody. Today I am sharing 10 tips for aging well. A little bit of hope and motivation for you so that your later years can be the best years of your life. This is information that few people really mention until it's too late. Caregiving is an unexpected role that can significantly affect your physical and mental health if you do it for a while. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And it's true. There's so much information out there, and I can verify this from my caregiving online support group called Caregiving Trap. Caregivers so often neglect self-care because they're too busy caring for other people that the importance of their life is way at the bottom of the list. With all of the experience and knowledge that caregivers gain by caring for grandparents, aging parents, spouses, and others, why is it that they are sometimes the least prepared for what it takes to age well? It's a great question, isn't it? In this video, I will share 10 practical tips for aging well that caregivers might brush off as unimportant for themselves, but important for the people that they care for. And if you're not a caregiver or a person who needs care, don't go away. Stay with me. Consider yourself fortunate that you are about to receive information that can potentially improve the rest of your life. Because I'm going to share tips about health, costs of care, the house that you live in, downsizing, bias in healthcare, and other experiences from my years as a care manager so that you can age beautifully in your later years. Why am I qualified to talk about this? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. I am a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker who has worked in this industry for more than 20 years. Please click below, like this video, follow my channel, and comment below, even if all you say is, hey, thanks for the video. This allows other people seeking hope, help, and support to find their way here to my channel. If you're looking for more information, you can also visit my website. It's PamelaDWilson.com. On there, there's 3 programs: How to Care for Aging Parents, Insights into Being a Power of Attorney, and Guardianship for Aging Parents, in addition to my podcast, The Caring Generation, my caregiving library, and my blog filled with hundreds of helpful articles. There's a link to my website below. So the first of these 10 tips for aging well should be obvious. You've probably heard this before, but it's not usually considered until something goes wrong. Number 1 is our bodies age. Similar to cars, cell phones, computers, and food products, the body has a shelf life or an expected life. And this shelf life or expected life depends on how well we maintain and care for our bodies our entire life, not just at some point in the middle of your life or the end of your life, but from the day that we are born. And I'll use an example of people who are extreme in their care, right? Let's look at world-class athletes. And then we can also look at those of us who consider ourselves day-to-day athletes. We work out, we're gym rats. So those of us who are active, pros and cons, right? We may be more likely to experience physical injuries due to the wear and tear on body parts. Because people are like, well, why should I exercise? What's the benefit? Okay. So this wear and tear of exercise, right, could be considered the downside, but I'm going to share the upside in a minute. So let's look at the obvious downside. You've probably seen all this in the news. How many of you know Tiger Woods is? There was a recent article in golf.com about Tiger Woods saying that he hurts everywhere. An injury in one body part, it's true, can affect other body parts. Now for Tiger, it's a lot of body parts, right? It's his, according to the article, his right foot, his back, his knees, his neck, and his hips. A lot of pain. For women, Serena Williams, a tennis player, dealt with recurring shoulder and knee injuries. Lindsey Vonn, who was an Olympic skier, had torn an ACL ligament in her right knee, and she also had a knee fracture. But the thing is, most of these athletes, and those of us who consider ourselves day-to-day athletes, right, we do recover from these injuries if we are proactive about addressing them and doing the physical therapy. How many of you know a friend who's had a knee surgery or a hip replacement or a rotator cuff shoulder surgery? Injuries do become more common with age. So where's the balance between reasonable exercise and too much exercise that can hurt us and not exercising at all? Because I hear some of you saying, well, gosh, that's why I don't exercise. I don't want to become injured. Exercise is bad for you if you're going to become injured, so why should I exercise at all? Well, talk about that. So even though people who exercise may experience physical injuries, overall, big picture, long life, they are healthier than people who are inactive and don't exercise, and they are more likely to recover more quickly from injuries and health issues and surgery. Active people, physically active people, also tend to spend more time with people who exercise and have healthy eating habits. So, look at the habits of the people that you spend the most time with. Are they physically active people or are they inactive people? Are they healthy or unhealthy? What is the lifestyle that you want or that you might want to pursue if you want to be healthier longer in life? Starting and making exercise a habit is the hard part, I'll be honest. But after you make it past that initial hump and establish consistent day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out habits, you honestly won't want to go a day without some type of physical activity. The risks of not exercising, right, include more other complicated health issues. Being physically inactive results in heart disease, being overweight, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, diabetes. Add to this weak muscles and bones, more mental and emotional health concerns, and poor sleep. How many older adults do you know who have fallen and had a serious injury and they didn't physically recover? Why is this? It's because they were inactive and their muscles and bones were weak. Not to mention, people who are not active can physically appear to age faster than people who don't exercise. So while our bodies are going to age, it's inevitable, it's going to happen to all of us, the best thing you can do, one of the best things you can do, we're going to talk about 9 more here, to protect your physical health and your mental well-being is to exercise and enjoy activities. As we age, the body does need more support to exercise without injury. So working out and doing muscle strengthening exercises is just as important as getting out there and doing cardiovascular activity. A simple thing as walking 7 days a week can really improve your cardiovascular and your strength and your mental health. Now, on the extreme, right? Most people can't jump out of bed and go on a 5-hour hike or go mountain biking without a certain degree of what I call physical training. So physical training is similar to mental training and learning when you think about it, right? You're not going to just put on skis and know how to ski or pick up a golf club and know how to golf, right? When you think of the mental aspects of training and learning, right? Could you today pass an algebra, a biology test, or a Spanish language test, assuming that Spanish is not your first language, without taking a class to learn all of these topics? Most of us cannot do that. Just like most of us cannot put on a pair of skis and ski, or go hiking and hike for 5 hours without physical conditioning and physical training. So, how do you get started? Maybe you need an accountability buddy. Find a friend to exercise with. Log your exercise times in a notebook. Find an exercise or activity app, or even better, get a smartphone that reminds you to exercise. I got this phone and I love it because it reminds me every day how active I am or not. If I sit too long, it tells me to get up and walk, gives me my heart rate, gives me a lot of statistics about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And it motivates me because when I sync this with my app on my cell phone, I'm like, yeah, I did it today. I did 100% of what I had planned to do. Everybody needs a little help now and then to start any new positive habit. Find out what that motivation is for you and begin it. So the second tip in 10 tips for aging well is being in poor health is expensive. Now, if you're young, there's no way you're going to know this because you don't go to the doctor and you don't have a lot of healthcare treatments and you probably don't have a lot of chronic diseases, right? And so while there are many complaints about the cost of health insurance, it's true, it's expensive. Being sick and needing care or treatment is even more expensive. So let's say that you have employer-provided health insurance, okay? If so, you have this annual deductible that you have to pay. And then you might have another cost called out-of-pocket, which is a cost share. Could be like 10% or 20% of other procedures that you receive or treatments or appointments, right? So when you combine these two, the annual deductible and the out-of-pocket costs, that cost can be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,500 to $10,000 a year. How many of us have this amount of money just sitting in a bank account set aside for when we get sick and need care? I will tell you, very few people. So, while you might think that that annual physical checkup or a copay for a medication is expensive or takes time, not scheduling and not attending an annual appointment can cost you a whole lot more. It can be shocking if you are diagnosed with any kind of serious health condition that is permanent or difficult to manage, not to mention the emotional toll this diagnosis takes on you. For older adults on Medicare, the cost may be less than an employer-sponsored plan, but consider this, right? If you're retired, you're on a fixed income, and so you're basically drawing from your bank account and your retirement every month to pay for these costs. Do you really want to have to spend unnecessary money on healthcare costs? Not really. None of us want to do that. So, ways to avoid high health expenses. Go back to number 1. Be physically active. Strengthen your body. Spend time with healthy people. This one here, make annual physician checkups, wellness visits. Make preventative health a priority. Number 3 for the 10 tips to aging well is little things eventually catch up with us. Let's say that you are on track. You've been doing great with exercise and eating habits, and some crazy event like, oh my gosh, your parents had a heart attack and you got to go take care of them, or something happened at work or in your personal life, it just takes you right off track, right? So now what's happening is you're going to Starbucks every day for a mocha frappuccino in a 20-ounce cup that has 500 calories, 140 milligrams of caffeine, and 79 grams of sugar, according to the Starbucks website, okay? The American Heart Association says, no, 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 no. For men, no more than 36 grams of sugar in a day. That little frappuccino, has twice as much. And for women, that number is even lower, 25 grams. So that mocha cappuccino has 3 times the amount of sugar you're supposed to have in an entire day in one drink. And then when you think about this, if you are a soda drinker, a non-diet soda drinker, a 12-ounce can of soda can have 32 grams of added sugar. So one little drink and you've reached your max for the day. It's these little things that catch up with us that we don't think about that can cause all kinds of unexpected and really unnecessary health problems. So if you're off track, if you're gaining weight, you're feeling mentally sluggish due to all this stress, and then you start eating junk food, pizza, you're driving through fast food restaurants, honestly, your body's probably in shock. And 6 months later, you're looking back, you're 20 pounds heavier, you're not feeling well, you're like, oh my gosh, what on earth happened? What did I do? All these little things that become stressors are not good for you. No matter how small, they eventually catch up with all of us. Procrastination to do anything has a similar effect. We all know we should go get our teeth cleaned or get that cavity fixed or schedule a mammogram or get the oil changed in our car, right? Start saving money. But for some reason, we put it off until tomorrow. It's not a good time. Too busy to deal with that. Got things that are way more important. And then you know what? Something happens that makes us look back and we're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that one thing? Now, we've all done this a time or two, and maybe more than a time or two, right? This is when we all have to be honest with ourselves and find the motivation to do things that are good for us that we might see as difficult, that really, once you do it, it's probably not as difficult as you imagine. You just built up all this worry in your head that it's going to be difficult. And if that's what you think, then it's going to be difficult. If you think it's going to be easy and you find a buddy to do it with you, it's way easier. Number 4 for 10 tips for aging well is, do you really need all of that stuff? This one comes up most frequently with adult children caregivers that I talk to who are saying, oh my gosh, I need to move my parents out of their home because they can't live there anymore. And there's 40 years of accumulated stuff in the attic, in the basement, stuffed into dresser drawers and closets. And my parents don't want to get rid of any of it. They're attached to all of it. So why do we have this tendency to accumulate stuff? Well, the more space you have, you buy things to fill that space, right? And then the space gets full and you fill up some other space, and then it's like you don't want to take time to declutter the space. So there's this other competing thought, right? So in my opinion, the media, commercials, radio, television, internet ads, right? And trying to keep up with other people fuel this need for stuff. And sometimes this need for stuff is an emotional need, right? So all these commercials on television tell us that we need this product and the latest gadget. But I mean, seriously, what did people do 100 years ago when all this stuff didn't exist? They lived very simply and happily, right? Honestly, how much worse would life be if we didn't have the latest tablet, computer, mobile phone, a brand new car every 3 years? How much worse would life be? Probably wouldn't be a lot worse. We just have this fear of missing out on the latest thing. Here's another shocker, right? People who are dying, they don't value things, right? Things have no value to people that are dying because you can't take it with you, right? People who are dying value people and time spent with people and life experiences. So if you were given a diagnosis tomorrow that confirmed that you would be not with us in 6 months, what would your first thought be? Would it be, I got to go shopping and I got to buy stuff? Now, for most people, unless you shop from stress, right? You're stressed, you got to go buy stuff. Or maybe you have a bipolar disorder and you're up and down and you got to go buy stuff, or some other reason, right? Most people, if you don't have one of those reasons, right, and you're going to die in 6 months, the answer would be, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I want to spend my last 6 months with time with friends and family, and maybe traveling and seeing the grandkids and making really good lasting memories, and sometimes even making amends with people that we don't have good relationships with. So ask yourself, do you really need all of this stuff? Do you need to go on shopping binges all the time? And start decluttering as much as possible, which is going to lead to our next point. So if you have a huge house, you eventually may move from that house. And what does that mean? That means that you're going to downsize to get rid of all of this stuff, right? Not to mention, if you don't fill up places with stuff and you don't need the latest thing, guess what? You can save money for retirement and experiences, vacations, things you can enjoy if you don't continually have this immediate need to get the latest thing, right? And go out and buy. So this leads us to number 5 of 10 tips for aging well. How practical will the home that you live in today be over time? Now, if you're young and you're going to get married and have children and you're in a small apartment, that's probably not going to be practical. But let's say that you're middle-aged and you've had children and your kids are going to be moving out of the house someday, or they're off to college. And it's you and a spouse and you got like a 6-bedroom house and all this space, right? So the 2 variances, right? When you're young, married and raising children, you might need a bigger house, right? When it's only the 2 of you, do you really need all these rooms and the yard work and the maintenance and the costs that are associated with this home? Are you heating and air conditioning empty rooms? Does your home need a lot of maintenance and repairs and upkeeps? Because after retirement, when you're on a limited budget of fixed income, right? You're not going to get raises anymore. How affordable is this big home that you live in going to be? At some point in your life, it will become practical to consider downsizing to get rid of all the stuff and to move into a reasonable sized house that you can manage, right? But only you can answer the question on timing. But it is something to consider, especially when you want to go out and do more enjoyable things than spending your whole weekend cutting the grass or shoveling the snow or doing maintenance projects, right? There's a point where all of that just isn't fun anymore. It's kind of like the been there, done that. I want to go and enjoy my life. I want to do things. I want to have experiences. And this house really is a drag on my finances and a drag on my time. So while you think that you may have forever, right, to do this, something like a fall could happen tomorrow that will make caring for a home more difficult for you or an aging parent. And adult children, I tell you, who have experience with aging parents who need to downsize or move due to a health condition are freaking out because they realize, oh my gosh, we're not going to get this entire house cleaned out and get all this maintenance done and these repairs done in a couple of days. This could take weeks. It could take months to complete. And then you may have the back and forth with parents about, well, I don't want to give that item up. I want to keep that. And where on earth are we going to put all this? Honestly, if you haven't used something in 6 months and it's not seasonal, it probably would be a good idea to donate it or give it away to somebody else who's going to use it. So rather than waiting until a move is necessary, get ready now by decluttering so that if something happens overnight, you're prepared to move in a matter of weeks if you have to. Tip number 6 for aging care is to admit that everyone may need care eventually, including me, including you, right? Even in the best circumstances, with the healthiest lifestyle, our bodies are going to wear out and all of us are going to die. I know this is a topic that nobody wants to talk about. However, though, here's the thing. If you want more choices over the way that you end up in this lifetime, embracing good health habits and saving money can give you more options. How many caregivers are shocked to find out that their parents didn't save for retirement? And then these caregivers are like, oh my gosh, I have to use my money to pay for the care of aging parents. So the question that you have to ask is, and I know many adult children feel guilty if they don't do this, or they feel obligated, right? Or they feel that it's their duty to take care of somebody else. But really, is it your plan to become part of someone else's plan or lack of planning, right? If you talk to your parents when they're younger about, are you saving for retirement? This is what I'm doing. You know, what are you going to want for your care? Do you have money to pay for your care? Have these family discussions early before you need to. Because the more that you plan for the future, the more prepared you will be for those unexpected, unpleasant, shocking things that are guaranteed to happen. Now, if you don't know what you need to plan for or what to expect, on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, there is an extensive course called Caring for Aging Parents. It's based off more than 20 years of my day-to-day life as a professional care manager, and prior to that, my experience as a family caregiver. That class will give you an idea of the emotional and financial stresses of dealing with family and the healthcare system and everything involved, so that you have an idea and you can prepare. So there's no excuse for not being prepared. You have an option. Number 7 of tips for aging well is things like having to give up the car keys and other things that you really enjoy. This is the pits, right? So I'll give you an example. So let's say that giving up an activity, and we're going to compare this to the need to have good coping skills and good skills to adjust when things happen, right? So the more balanced you are, the more reasonable and factual, and throw a little emotion in there, the better that you can cope when unexpected things happen. So are you good at that right now? If you're not, it might be something that you want to work on. So let's say that you were a downhill skier for so many years, and now you're having some knee and back problems, and you're like, probably shouldn't downhill ski anymore. So instead, you take up cross-country skiing. That is adapting, right? You still get to ski, you still get to be out in the beautiful, amazing outdoors, do your winter sports, go out and do things with people that you love, right? But you're just doing it differently. So you can still ski, right? But you're just adapting to different types of skiing. Maybe you take up snowshoeing or some other activities, right? Now let's talk about the car, because the car is a really tough one, right? Giving up the car keys, either due to physical concerns or memory loss, can be a huge concern and a huge loss, because it's the idea of this perceived restriction of freedom, right? I can't get in the car and go where I want to go when I want to go. And that is a big loss, because that can result in not being able to socialize as much or see friends, or it's difficult to get groceries or get to the doctor, right? So when this happens, you've got to research other transportation options, especially if you are an adult child trying to encourage a parent to give up the car keys, or if you are that power of attorney and your loved one has dementia and you know they are unsafe because they've had multiple car accidents or they've gotten lost driving, and you have to take away the keys and the car to keep them safe, right? On the other hand, if you're older and you have friends and you still drive, you might offer to become the driver once a month to take a bunch of friends to lunch, or go to a activity, or to do something else, some kind of social activity, which would be really nice of you to do, right? Now, if you are that person who's had to give up a car, you may make transportation appointments through a friend and do something nice for them because they're taking you somewhere. Or look up local transportation services or taxi services, or things like that to get around, right? You have to keep getting around. Now, this brings us to, what if we don't have family? What if we don't have friends? How do we plan for this? So number 8 of 10 tips for aging well is, what do you do if family is at a distance, or if you don't have family, right? If you have no children or family nearby, then you need a way better plan for aging well, right? This can come by having or creating a network of friends who commit to support each other in different ways, maybe transportation, maybe some grocery shopping, maybe just call once a week to check in, right? Some housing builders are actually building communities dedicated to solo agers. So if you don't know what a solo ager is, it's somebody who never got married, never had children. Maybe you are divorced and you never had children. Maybe you have lost a spouse, so you're a widow and your kids live 2,000 miles away, right? You're aging alone, so you are considered a solo ager. So builders are developing communities for solo agers so that there is community support, right? Some communities with homeowners associations, the HOAs, are saying, hey, you know what? We're all getting older. We need to make our own resource lists. We need to find people that we trust, that we can share with other people living in the community to come in and help us, right? And even some neighborhood groups have started senior advocacy groups, right? Kind of the same thing. They collect a list of housekeepers and people who do lawn and home maintenance and caregivers and things like that. and they're trusted resources, and they're shared among these people who live in an HOA or who live in a neighborhood. So as a solo ager, you've got to find alternate plans to receive care when you need it, and it's best to do it way before something comes up, because when you need it, if you don't have these supports in place, it's going to be a little more difficult. The other things for solo agers, and really everybody, right, is completing an estate plan with documents that include a medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, a living will, and a will or a trust, right? So those are things, the will and the trust are things that take place either during your life or after your life in respect to a will, right? So equally important, though, is saving for retirement, having these plans for how to pay for care, who's going to help you, where you're going to get the care, all of that. So if you want to learn more about estate planning and specifically power of attorney, my website, PamelaDWilson.com, has an online extensive program about this. I'll put the link below this video. So number 9 of 10 tips for aging well is the fact that life is going to sneak up on us. Aging is going to sneak up on us. Even though you feel 25 and the age on your driver's license is 55, the time between 25 and 55, it could go like a blink of an eye, right? It goes so fast, right, when you're enjoying your life. So this topic relates to the importance of planning for aging regardless of whether you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, right? Now, I want to talk about like society and social pressures and things like this, because society has these guidelines that put people into what I call buckets, right? So these days, if you're 50, you're getting letters from AARP, the Association of Retired People, right? Who they consider anybody over age 50 to be like a hot target. You're an older adult, right? Now, I know people who are 50 who look like they're 30. I know people who are 50 who look and act like they're 80, right? Age is relative to your life experience and how well you take care of yourself, right? Separately, it's important to understand that a lot of biases exist not only in society, but in the healthcare system for individuals who appear to be older. So older can be perceived by the presence of a physical disability or physical weakness or maybe illness, or even like the fact that you have gray hair. I know people whose hair turns gray when they're in their 30s and 40s, right? I also find it very interesting and very biased, right? You see all these television commercials that depict older people, right? All these older people have gray hair. There are people in their 60s who don't have gray hair, right? So the media makes older people out to like you have to appear feeble and you have to look old and dress old and think old, and that's not true. A lot of older adults are healthy and active and vibrant, right? So we've got to change the way that we think about aging. Now, here's an important thing. If you are older, healthy or not healthy, and you're working with the healthcare system, the more factual and detail-oriented you can be, the better care you will receive, because physicians and healthcare providers group people by averages. The average 60-year-old does this. The average 70-year-old has these diseases. The average 80-year-old is like this, right? So this means that they put you in these little groups and they categorize you without looking at you as an individual person who has different needs from all the other 60, 70-year-olds or 80-year-olds, right? So also on the topic of bias, and this is a tough one to admit when you're older, right? If you haven't kept up with your health and you're not in good physical condition, you can be considered more of a risk for any type of medical treatment. And let's talk about surgery specifically. So any type of surgery is risky for anyone of any age, right? If we're younger, we recover probably a little easier. But once we're older and we have chronic health conditions, which come from, remember, inactivity, not exercising, not keeping up your physical strength, right? So if you have a chronic condition, heart disease, diabetes, breathing problems, arthritis, circulation issues, back pain, knee pain, all those kind of things, right? This means that your ability to recover from an invasive surgery is going to be hard. It's really going to be the pits. And you're not going to know that until you go through the surgery and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I can't move. I'm in so much pain. And then you're thinking, wow, this is going to be really hard to recover from, right? So if you're not a person who exercises and is in good shape before surgery, then you're probably not going to be in better shape after surgery, right? You're going to have a much more difficult time in effort and length of time to recover from any type of surgery. So why put yourself through that if you can avoid it, right? Now, this whole idea can be really difficult to understand. If you're young and you're perfectly healthy and you're in a situation where, eventually you get to a point where the physician's not listening to you and you've got all these health problems and you're trying to explain, these issues and they're just not listening, right? So in that case, you've got to really advocate with facts and be super detailed, keep notes, share the notes, keep telling the doctor there's a problem, or find a family member who can help you advocate, right? Because again, if you have a lot of health issues and you need more care, the way to get it is through advocacy, but it's also through changing your habits, right? Saying, you know what, I am going to exercise. I am going to do whatever it takes to recover from this because I want to be healthier, right? The last tip, number 10 of 10, is that living alone or being isolated brings in a whole host of other risk factors into your life. Being socially active and having friendships become more important with age, right? And harder with age, because it's not like when we were in school and there was a bunch of people our age and they were all around and we had all these things in common, or when we went to college, or even when we worked and we had things in common with our coworkers, right? Once you retire, all of that socialization disappears overnight. It can shrink if you don't have other social groups that you've established during your working years, or hobbies that you've established during your working years. So you retire and you got a bit of work to do to make some new friends and engage in social groups and activities, right? There's a lot of research out there that confirms that remaining socially active is really good for the body and for the mind. When we look at COVID, that whole period of, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of isolation, what a nightmare for people, right? On not only people's physical abilities, mental abilities, people didn't go to the doctor and get their well care done. So when you become socially isolated, it's easier to become more worrisome and depressed. People who are depressed are more likely to be diagnosed with more chronic health issues. An antidote, by the way, is, guess what? Exercise. So isolation can bring in a lot of complications, right? So let's say that even though you still drive, you're only going to the grocery store to pick up things, right? You're not driving to go to social activities because you don't know people to be social with, okay? You're just running errands. So if you don't have any friends and no social outlets, right? And you're a caregiver, join a caregiving support group. If you're just an older adult, make an effort to find some new hobbies based on your interests, right? Join social groups of people, either online or in person, with similar interests. So there's a lot of meetup groups on the internet and websites. Now, you obviously have to be very careful to make sure that you're meeting real people that you can trust and you're not jumping into a relationship with somebody who's going to take advantage of you, because there are those people out there, right, who take advantage of, people who've lost a loved one or they've just lost a spouse, right? I've seen it happen. So you got to be careful about the people that you meet, but you can meet some really good people. You can also search for hobby groups, right? So hiking groups, golfing groups, sewing groups, gardening groups, right? Tons of groups out there. The important thing is to find a way to do something that you enjoy every single day. A hobby. Take a class, learn something new, learn a foreign language, learn something that you've always wanted to do, right? There are classes at community colleges or through something called the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. That website is osherfoundation.org. They offer a lot of classes nationally through college campuses for people who are 55 and plus, and really interesting things, right? History, politics, social issues, all kinds of things, right? There's absolutely no reason to become isolated, feel alone, or bored. Do something about it. Only you can change your situation. So while retirement means you're ending this formal work relationship, there's also a lot of volunteer activities waiting for you. I know so many nonprofits who need good people to be on their boards and help with activities and things. It's a great way to meet people and probably a safer way to meet people than over the internet, right? There are so many people that I know who remain even more engaged and active in retirement than they were when they worked. And they're healthy, and they're happy, and they're thriving. The differences in quality of life between people who are active versus people who are inactive, honestly, it's like night and day. So specific to aging well, you have this amazing control over your life, no matter your age, no matter when you find this video, right? The earlier that you realize that you have this amount of control, the more opportunities you have to create the life you want, not only today, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in your retirement years and your later years, right? Take advantage of this. Remember these 10 points. Think about them often. I thank you all for being here. I am Pamela D. Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. Again, reminder, please click below to like this video, follow my channel, comment, even if all you do is say thanks. Your comments help other people find these videos. I thank you immensely for being here, sending you all positive thoughts, a lot of hope that you can build the life of your dreams. I look forward to seeing you again soon in another video or in a webinar on one of the programs on my website, or maybe I'll hear you listening to my weekly podcast. I'll see you all again soon.